Hey all, this is Jason Bell. Welcome to Poker Vlog number 11. In this episode, I'm at Texas Card House in Houston, Texas, and boy was the action crazy. Thank you to the two guys who subscribed at the table. I was involved in a lot of hands, so let's get right into it. Thanks for watching. Okay folks, this is the very first hand of the night, and boy is there action. I'm sitting down at the table, I'm just now setting up my chips, and I'm looking at a premium, Ace-King offsuit. I'm in under the gun +1. The under the gun limps, of course I'm raising this one up, I raise it to $12. There are then 5 subsequent callers, and it gets back to the under the gun, who limp raises all in for just over $200 effective. Odds are this guy didn't limp with pocket aces, kings, or queens, or probably not even jacks, maybe tens, but yeah, I think I'm probably going to be pretty good here. So I jam all in for $300 effective. $300 is the max buy-in at the table, just so I could get some other players to fold out. So I'm just going one-on-one with this guy. And the under the gun shows Ace-Queen offsuit. He asked if we want to run it once or twice, and I said it's up to you. And he said let's go ahead and run it twice. The first board is Jack high, and the second board is King high. So I take down both boards, and it's a nice little double up here at the first hand of the night. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the small blind, and I look down at pocket fours. The under the gun limps, the low jack limps, and the cutoff raises to $20. I think I want to single out a person here. I don't think that calling in the small blind with pocket fours with multiple opponents, not a big fan of, so I go ahead and 3-bet to $60. And only the cutoff calls. So we're heads up to a flop, which comes Ace-Jack-9 with 2 clubs. I want to put out a little feeler C-bet here, see where I'm at. So I go ahead and C-bet for $45. It's pretty small in relation to the pot, about a third of the size of the pot. And the cutoff goes ahead and calls. But the pot is brewing, it's a little over $200 here. The turn is the king of spades. You know, given the position that he's in, he could have a number of hands at this point. He did raise pretty strong initially, and I go ahead and decide to slow down here. I check, but then the cutoff goes ahead and checks as well. So what could he have here? Is it possible did he flop something? Does he have any face card really? He's in a really good position here, but he goes ahead and checks the turn. And the river is the ace of spades. I go ahead and check, pretty much giving up at this point, and the cutoff bets $80. There's just too much that he could have. Unlikely he has an ace. He could have a king, a jack, a 9. He could have a straight. Essentially, most pocket pairs are going to beat mine. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold this one, and that's what I do. Okay, in this hand, I'm under the gun +1, and I look down at a pretty one, Ace-Jack of diamonds. I go ahead and raise this to $12, and it folds around to the big blind who makes the call. Flop is 9-7-3 rainbow. Got a couple of overs here. The big blind checks. I'm going to go ahead and bet $12 here. Again, see where I'm at, and he goes ahead and makes the call. So the pot is $49 at this point, and the turn club becomes the 8 of clubs. Still have some overs. Flush draw is gone. I go ahead and double barrel here. I go ahead and bet $20, and the big blind calls. So what on earth does he have here? Pot's getting up to just under $100, and the river comes the 10 of hearts. I go ahead and triple barrel. I'm trying to tell a story here that maybe I've got an overpair, and I go ahead and bet $40, but he ends up making the call, and he shows Queen 10 for the rivered top pair. Well, so much for that. I guess he had, a double gutter at one point, and he was just on a draw the whole time, and I just didn't bet enough here. You live and learn, and bluffing is nearly impossible in these stakes. Okay, I'm in the low jack here, and I look down at 6-4 of hearts. Change things up here a little bit. The under the gun raises to $6, which is the smallest raise I've seen at any 1-2 or 1-3 game in a long time. The under the gun +1 calls. I go ahead and make the call here, and it folds around. So the flop is 9-4-3 rainbow, so I've got a piece of the board here. The under the gun bets $15, and the under gun +1 folds. I'm going to go ahead and make the call. I've got some back doors. I've got a middle pair. The pot is a little over $50, and the turn is a 7. Okay, now I've got a gutter and a paired board. The under the gun checks, which indicates a little bit of weakness on his part. Maybe he didn't hit anything. I go ahead and bet $20 here, and he goes ahead and makes the call. So the pot is $91, and the river is a 10. He goes ahead and checks, and I go ahead and check as well, and he ends up showing ace-9 offsuit. So I go ahead and lose this one here. Probably was a hand that I shouldn't have been in the first place, but I wanted to change things up a bit. I show my 6-4 to show that I'm playing a little bit looser and not necessarily tight. Okay, I'm on the button in this hand, and I look down at ace-8 offsuit. There are 2 limpers, and the hijack raises to $15. I go ahead and make the call here, and the rest of the players fold. Pot is $37, and the flop comes ace-9-7 with 2 diamonds. He checks, which basically tells me he might not have an ace here. My kicker is not so good with the 8, but I go ahead and actually check for deception here. Usually you don't see deception betting too much here at low limit. The turn is the queen of clubs. He checks, and I decide I need to go ahead and start putting out money into this pot, so I bet $16, but then he raises to $65. So this is interesting. What could he have here? Could he have king queen? Could he have queen jack? Is he on some sort of draw? Is he on a club draw? Possibly, but I go ahead and make the call here with my ace. I just don't see that he has another ace. It's possible that he's got a set of 9s or 7s, and he's worried that a flush could come out on the board. But I go ahead and make the call. The pot is $167, and the river is the ace of clubs. But then he checks, which is very odd, and which tells me that he has nothing here, but maybe he was trying to steal the pot on the turn. I go ahead and go all in for $144, and he goes into the tank for a while. A solid 2 minutes. This is pretty good here because that tells me that he certainly doesn't have, a flush, but he ends up making the call, and I show my trip aces, and he mucks. So I win a nice sized pot here. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the big blind, and I look down at ace-4 offsuit. The under the gun limps, and it folds around to the button who bets $15. The small blind calls, and of course I'm going to go ahead and make the call here with my ace. The pot is almost $50, and the flop comes queen 7-7 rainbow. Small blind checks. I'm going ahead and checking here to the button who bets $20. Small blind folds, and I go ahead and decide to stick around for a bit, so I go ahead and call. I was getting a reading off of this guy that made me think that he likely didn't have much here. So the pot is $87. And the turn is the 8 of spades. I check, and then my reads seem to be accurate because he checked. And then the river is the 9 of hearts. I go ahead and check here. I'm not quite certain that, my ace high is good, but it's certainly possible. But when he checks back, I show my ace-4 offsuit, and I take it down with ace high. Okay, in this hand, I'm on the button, and I look down at ace-3 of clubs. Middle position limps. The hijack raises to $15. Of course, I'm going to call here, and the middle position calls. So we're 3 ways to a flop, which comes ace-6-7 rainbow. So I hit my top pair, but I've got a pretty weak kicker. Middle position checks, and the hijack bets $25. Of course, I'm going to call here, and middle position goes ahead and folds. So the pot is nearly $100. The turn is the 9 of diamonds. So the hijack checks here, which is interesting. So why on earth would he check? Is he deceiving? Does he have a set here? I go ahead and check back to keep the pot a little bit under control. And the river is the jack of spades. Then he goes ahead and bets $100. And this threw me off. After checking the turn, it made me think he probably didn't have anything. Maybe he's got a jack. So I go ahead and make the call with my ace. But then he ends up turning over ace-10 offsuit. So it was a really good play by the hijack here. And I go ahead and lose a nice sized pot of nearly $300. Okay, in this hand, I'm under the gun, and I look down at clubs yet again, this time the ace-6 variety. I go ahead and raise it to $10 here. I reduce my raise size on some of the weaker hands, and some of the stronger hands I'll increase my raise size. But in this one, I chose $10, and again, this was a little bit loose of a play, but I was okay with it this evening. The low jack, button, small blind, and big blind all make the call. So the pot is $50, and the flop comes 6-7-8 with 2 clubs. I will take that. I hit a lot of this board here and got tons of equity. But when it checks to me, I go ahead and make the check again. And in this instance, I was a little bit scared of placing a bet and having everyone fold. And, was that the smartest play to check? I'm not quite sure. Should I have bet? possibly, but it checks around, and the turn comes the 4 of hearts. The big blind bets $15. Of course, I'm not going anywhere with all this equity. I go ahead and make the call, and the low jack and small blind calls as well. So the pot's a little over $100, and the river is the 9 of clubs. The small blind and big blind both check to me. Of course, I'm putting money into this pot, so I go ahead and bet $40, and the low jack calls, and the small blind and big blind fold. Of course, I'm going to win this one. This was a nice pot of nearly $200, and the low jack mucks his hand. Pretty decent sized pot here. Okay, in this hand, I'm on the button, and I look down at 10-9 offsuit. It folds to the middle position, who raises to $12, and I go ahead and make the call. So we're heads up to a flop, which comes 10-8-6 with 2 clubs. He checks, and of course, I'm going to put some money into this pot with my top pair. So I bet $10, which is, I don't know, about a 40% size bet. He makes the call. Turn is the king of clubs, so that completes the front door flush here. However, he checks, and this is one where I probably should have bet. I got a reading from this guy that he didn't have much, but I ended up checking here. And then the river is the 9 of spades, so that completes my 2 pair. But he goes ahead and bets $20. What could he have here? The sizing of the bet makes me think that, maybe he has just a single pair. Maybe, I don't think he's got clubs here. I don't think he has a straight, but it's certainly possible. And when he bets $20, I decide to go ahead and call. But when he shows his ace-9, that just makes me angry right off the bat. A little bit tilted that I should have raised, but I didn't, and I won a pot here a little under $100. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the cutoff, and I'll look down at Queen 10 offsuit. The under the gun and middle position both limp. Now with this hand, this is a really kind of loose, sketchy hand here, but instead of limping, which I generally never do, I highly advise against limping ever, but I go ahead and raise it to $15. The under the gun folds and the middle position calls. So the pot is $35, and the flop comes 9-6-5 with 2 diamonds. The middle position checks. I go ahead and bet $15 here, just a c-bet, see where I'm at, and he makes the call. The pot is $65, and the turn is the king of hearts. So that puts 2 flush potentials on the board. Middle position checks, and I decide to slow way down here, and I check as well. River's a blank. He bets $40, and you know what? I have nothing here, so I am out. No thanks. In this hand, I'm in the big blind, and I look down at a premium. Ace-king. Nice. Middle position limps, and the hijack makes a hefty raise to $25. Yep, I'm going to bump this one up. I decided to 3-bet to $70. Middle position decides to fold, and the hijack makes the call. So we're heads up to a flop, which comes Jack 9-4 rainbow. I put out a c-bet here. I've got a couple of overs, no flush potential. Yeah, there's backdoor straight potential, but then he raises to $140. Okay, this one made me think a little bit. The fact that he didn't 4-bet me off the flop makes me think he doesn't have aces or kings. It's pretty possible that he's got queens here, maybe a set of jacks. With my 6 outs here, if he does have queens or a set, this would not be a good call. So I decided to fold this one. He ends up showing pocket queens, and I apologize for not getting this one on camera. Yeah, my reading was right on this play, and I'm glad I folded here. This is the final recorded hand of the evening. My camera was just about out of battery, but I'm in the low jack, and I look down at ace-queen offsuit. There's a $5 under the gun straddle going on. Of course, I'm going to raise this one up, so I raise this one to 16. The hijack calls, but the big blind 3-bets to 47, so he puts the squeeze on. But I'm not going to go anywhere with this one. I call the 47, and the hijack calls. So the pot is nearly $150, and the flop comes King 9-6 rainbow. Well, it checks around, believe it or not, so that tells me that nobody has a king here. The turn is the ace of spades, so I hit top pair, really good kicker. However, the big blind leads out for $150. What on earth could he have here? Not likely that he's got ace-king, given that he checked after the flop. So I'm going to go ahead and I go all in, which is about $309 effective. And the hijack folds, and the big blind thinks about this for a while. And he ends up making the call. So the pot is pretty large here, over $700. The river is the queen of clubs. So I hit my 2 pair. Nothing to do at this point. He shows ace-jack, and I show my ace-queen, and I take it down with 2 pairs. So this guy was pretty aggressive. This was one of the ones that was in a lot of pots, had a probably VPIP of north of 70-80%. But this was a nice-sized pot here, and I'm glad I took this down.
Wow. I have not seen that much action in a long time. Unbelievable. Started with $300. I got down to about $225 at one point, so I topped off for an additional $60. So I'm in for $360, out for $870, for a nice little profit of $510. Unreal. I can't believe the action. I was either up or I was down, 200, 300. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe.